Change is inevitable. Change is constant. Without change, there is no innovation, creativity, or incentive for improvement. I do not think real estate brokers are going anywhere, and I do not think the overall commission structure we've been using for 50 years is in jeopardy. For decades, sellers and buyers have had an option. There's always been options. There's no regulation stating that they must use a broker or pay a standard broker commission. This lawsuit is more of a smear campaign alleging that 1.5 million realtors around the United States are gathering together and setting a standard commission for the industry. It's absurd. Broker commissions have been under fire for decades, but the public finds great value in our service. And even as new options in the marketplace are presented, we continue to thrive, and the data supports that. There are discount brokers, flat fee brokers that allow sellers to post on the MLS, Redfin, for sale by owners, Zillow's new attack at for sale by owners, and now listing brokers that are offering $0 co-op to buyer's agents. First of all, I think we need an acronym for this type of transaction. The discount brokers have failed to gain popularity or any significant market share, which speaks to the value of our full service broker service. Redfin has less than 1% market share. I'm so confident in my services, and I welcome the competition and clarity that this marketplace offers. The public understands you are paying for a service, and you typically get what you pay for. We are talking about a complex transaction that happens infrequently. Most buyers and sellers want a trusted professional guiding them through the process with white glove type service. The fear of making a mistake with a purchase this big is very real. The industry has been trained that sellers pay the buyer's commission, and now we want to change the rules, or at least give more clarity to the game. Fine. But letting buyers represent themselves is basically turning the clock back 40 years and creating an unjust marketplace where the individual will inevitably make costly mistakes and incite more lawsuits. We must have the buyer represented and understand that if the property is being sold by a licensed real estate broker, that seller is being represented by a broker, and so should you. Listen, with Zillow, buyers can contact the listing agent directly and represent themselves. Most choose not to. Again, they understand the business and the marketplace. The unrepresented buyer does not have sales data, experience, or a trusted advisor helping guide them through the process, hence why they'll make mistakes. We should let the sellers know that during the listing presentation, they are paying a percentage of their gross commission to a cooperating buyer's agent. I always did this. I always laid things out. I do believe that the majority of sellers and buyers understand how the real estate transaction works, but if you're charging 5%, let them know that 2.5% is going to the buyer's agency and why. I personally would let them know that if there was not a buyer's agent, that I would reduce my commission. And in the very rare instant that that happens, I did do that. Buyers should be represented and given professional guidance. Almost every one of my clients is so appreciative of my service. Look at my reviews. They all say that there is no way that they would have gotten through this transaction without me. And that's not even coordinating the showings. It's the nuts and bolts, so much behind the scenes information that we're giving this buyer, intel, pricing strategies, challenging them. Is this the right home, the right neighborhood? There's so much that goes into these transactions above and beyond just a commission. You should educate your sellers during the listing appointment. Why is XYZ broker charging 2.5% and not offering a buyer's agent co-op? Why is Redfin charging 3.5%? You need to explain the value of a listing agent and a buyer's agent and why they should be compensated for participating in this transaction. That's what this lawsuit is doing. It's going to help give clarity to the public, which I love. If you offer 0% co-op, you still might be paying the buyer's agent commission. And that's what's going to happen in the majority of these transactions. So if you're offering 0% co-op, the buyer agent will then ask for a commission to be paid for you. And you have the opportunity to say yes or no. Most are going to say yes. The data doesn't lie. The full service brokerage is the #1 trusted choice. I always had a buyer consultation. I felt it was a great way to get a search started, learn about the client, solidify our relationship, and set goals. I would mention typically that the seller would pay the commission, and I was here as a free advocate, guiding you through this process, giving you all my experience, expertise, etc., making sure you had all the tools to get the best price for the best home possible. This lawsuit is changing the landscape a little bit. A lot of brokerages are moving towards a mandatory buyer representation agreement, which honestly is probably a good idea. You now have to have a conversation about compensation during your buyer's representation agreement, which is fine. The majority of the time, the seller will pay the commission. But if not, you need to broach the topic with the buyer that they might be responsible for a percentage of the transaction or potentially a flat fee. And you're going to have to negotiate that with the sellers. If you don't have this conversation, you are most likely going to have a transaction on your roster in the coming years that you do not get paid for. The new exclusive buyer representation agreement is comprehensive, and it has all of the options to solve these problems that will arise about compensation. Now, if there is a $0 co-op offered on the MLS for any transaction you're dealing with, when negotiating the offer, use the broker-to-broker compensation agreement and ask the seller to pay 2.5% to you as a buyer's agent representing the buyer. It's just one more line item that you're going to have to negotiate and that the seller is going to have to assess as a net number when dealing with the transaction. If there's multiple offers, fine. That's the only time it might get a little tricky and buyer's agents might cut their commission to help get deals done. But we've been doing that for years. So that doesn't change. Like, it's just being more transparent about compensation. I have actually done buyer compensation agreements with for sale by owner transactions. Almost every seller is willing to pay me if I bring them a buyer. The stockbroker community and trading community had a big shakeup when online trading started. Those transactions can be done with the click of a button, and I'm sure there is plenty of regret in those E-Trade clients. All of us will coexist, and I welcome the clarification for both buyers and sellers. Proves my value even more when I secure a listing or a buyer client with my full service strategy. We want change. We want evolution on all levels. As we learn what works and how to protect the consumer, let's use that knowledge to move forward. Thanks for joining. Like, share, and follow for more real estate knowledge.